Hello everyone, welcome back to Be the Whole You. My name is Gulveg, and today we're going to be talking about the full moon in Capricorn that is on June 21st, 2024, and it is on the summer solstice this time too. So it's a big milestone this year, of the year. The summer solstice is the longest day of the year. Our ancestors, they would recognize this by, and sometimes like by building huge monuments for the summer solstice. And this is like the halfway marker between the beginning of the year and the end of the year. And so if this year hasn't completely panned out the way that you would have liked, if there are details that are still really challenging, this is a really excellent time to take stock, to regroup, reanalyze, recalibrate, and to shift course if you need to iron out details, to re-strategize, and to, if you need to get your year back on track, this is an excellent time to do it, not just because it's the summer solstice, but also because this full moon is a very good energy for all of that reanalysis. So in the full moon, you always have the moon and the sun, they're kind of squaring off, right? They're in opposition. But this time around, the moon in Capricorn is not just squaring off with the sun in Cancer, but it's also squaring off with Venus at 5 degrees in Cancer and Mercury at 10 degrees in Cancer. So the sun, Mercury, and Venus are conjunct. They're within 10 degrees of each other. So more or less, they are sitting on top of one another. And it's like in the tarot where when I pull cards and two cards come out together, and I look at that as like one energy that is together, that's married. That's kind of like what a conjunction is. So you have Venus, which is the sacred feminine, and it's about wealth and it's about beauty. I always consider Venus to be a little bit about luck, even though that's kind of Jupiter's domain. But I do consider it because of the way that it blesses us with wealth and nurturing. Like, who couldn't use a little bit more nurturing and wealth dust being sprinkled into their life, right? And then we have Mercury, which is about communication, travel, intellect, learning. So we have all of those energies that are right on top of each other. And then you have the moon in Capricorn, which is facing off with it. And Capricorn is the doer. You know, it's associated with overcoming obstacles. It is it is one of the best energies as far as using it to leverage to overcome challenges. Like, keep in mind that the Capricorn is symbolized by the goat, the mountain goat specifically, where this animal with hooves can literally jump and maneuver up a mountain. If you've ever seen any video, or if you've been lucky enough to see these amazing creatures in person, jump from cliffside to cliffside on these tiny little ledges, it's pretty miraculous how agile they are. That's the kind of energy Capricorn brings. Now, along with this, the Sun, Venus, and Mercury are also squaring off with the North Node that is in Aries and the South Node that's in Libra. And we've been dealing with this North Node in Aries and South Node in Libra energy for several months now, especially since the eclipse this spring, when everything kind of got amped up. And because this squaring off between the North Node, which is what we're headed towards, and the South Node, which is what we've already learned, we've already integrated, and we are moving from, this represents the boundaries that we have talked about so many times in these videos, that represents negotiating the rights of the individual versus the rights of the group or the collective. And all of us are feeling this North and South Node thing. You see it in the news, you're seeing it in the world. Like, there's all of this negotiation, right, about and talk about what are the rights of the individual versus the rights of the government, the organization, families, so on and so forth. And in our personal lives, also what's really interesting in relationship to this negotiation is that this particular full moon is representing a milestone in that, because Capricorn represents the archetype of the father, and Cancer represents the archetype of the mother. And this could potentially actually bring up issues from the past with the person who represented the mother or the father who raised us. Or it could even bring up challenges that might have to do as far as like how we relate to masculine and feminine traits within ourselves. So when we're talking about the masculine and the feminine, we're not talking about gender or sex. We're talking about the character traits and the energy of masculine and feminine. All of it, we all have a combination of both in us. And so all of these energies, the north, the south node, sun, Venus, and Mercury, all of these together, they create a grand cross. And a grand cross is a alignment where energy just kind of keeps circulating. It doesn't seem like it really ever gets resolved. It's like that proverbial like spinning your wheels type of thing, and it feels rather frustrating. So what I want to impart on that is that on the day of this full moon, I'm going to explain how in a second, but we will eventually feel better within the same week. So what's happening is that we have the squaring off between the celestial mom and dad. Mom and dad, they're not seeing eye to eye, right? And we have Venus, which is about wealth and beauty and pleasure, and we have Mercury, which is about communication. And so the communication might just not end up really landing where we need it to be. Like there, especially because of the frustration piece of it, be very careful this week with our words. Your word is your wand. So be very conscientious about how you direct that wand and what words you cast. You know what I'm saying? Because if we start talking too much from a place of frustration, pessimism, and wounded or traumatized parts of ourselves, then we're only going to be creating more of that energy in our life versus using words that are helping create clarity and to disperse the energy of challenge and obstacles and frustration that might be coming up to a head. So this is what I see here is like, because on the 24th, the moon is going to conjunct Pluto. So on the 21st, we have like all of this stuff that's kind of coming up to the surface, right? And I think that a lot of the frustration is going to be about, I think there's going to be a lot of folks who are going to be dealing with family karma. So things that we might have been able to kind of either push aside or ignore or think that they were already kind of taken care of, that stuff might come up to the surface, especially around ancestry and family patterns that aren't very helpful, in conflict within our home life. That comes up to the surface so that we can have a new perspective on it. It might take a few days. By the 24th, we're going to start getting some clarity. So it's not coming up just to frustrate us. It's not coming up just to be an inconvenience. Like there is a rhyme and reason to the universe, and that's why astrology exists. Is that, if we really watch it over a long period of time, we can see how the challenges are usually also followed up within a good period of time to the solution if we are paying attention. And if you're watching this, you probably are paying attention. So then on the 24th of June, in 24th of June, Moon conjuncts Pluto at 1 degree in Aquarius. Pluto is the planet of death and rebirth. So there is a shift that's happening. And on the 21st, we start feeling and becoming aware of the shift that needs to happen. We start have more clarity on how certain things that didn't seem like they were actually negatively affecting us, how they actually are affecting us. And so that might be like, for example, perhaps you don't even talk to one of your parents, and yet something comes up and you start seeing that, the way that you were raised actually is affecting the way that you interact with people at work, and it's causing turmoil, it's causing challenges. So that would be like one example of how something that seems like it's a completely separate part of our life and it shouldn't actually be affecting other parts of our life, it's all connected. We are not, human beings are not segregated into nice and tidy little boxes. We like to pretend like our life is very compartmentalized, but it all affects each other. It's a holistic system that we are in. And so then we start to see how these different areas that seem rather segregated actually aren't, and how they actually are bleeding into and affecting other parts of our lives, or perhaps they're holding us back from taking the steps forward that we've been wanting to take. So then by the 24th, we start it becomes more solid as far as, okay, this is what I'm actually going to do about it, or this is what my options are at the very least by the 24th. Because on the 24th, not only does the moon conjunct Pluto, but then it creates a sextile with the sun and Venus in Capricorn. So instead of that harsh squaring off, now the energy is softened. It starts to feel like there's a little bit more flexibility. And then it also trines Black Moon Lilith, Jupiter at 6 degrees in Gemini, and it also trines Neptune. So Jupiter expands, and Jupiter is literally the lucky planet, and it is at 6 degrees in Gemini. So as the moon starts to transition on the 24th and the energy starts to become a little bit more flexible, more pliable, doesn't feel like we're really spinning our wheels as much, doesn't feel as stuck. We also have this energy of Gemini, which is associated with Mercury, that is about learning, it's about new perspectives, and it's also about communication. So Jupiter is expanding that. And then it's also trining the Black Moon Lilith. And Black Moon Lilith is a astrological point in the sky. It's not actually a celestial body. It's not a planet or a comet or an asteroid or anything of that nature, or a star. It's an astrological point, and this is associated with the parts of ourselves that are hidden. So then now those parts that are hidden are being given more space to essentially breathe. Some of those parts might be given a voice. So what I see here, and I usually don't talk about like the whole week around the moon because it's not usually as pertinent, but in this particular case it is. It is pertinent, and we're going to talk about what's going to happen between the 21st and the 27th, because the 27th is when everything really starts to wrap up, and we really start to come up with some solutions and create a strategy where, you know, we can see some benefits from our hard work. So the things that are coming up on the 21st, most likely for a lot of us, depends on each person's birth chart, but for a lot of us, it is going to be representative of parts of ourselves that have been repressed, that perhaps we've been afraid to show, that feel maybe just a tad bit too vulnerable to allow ourselves to share with others. And this is an opportunity to give those parts a bit more freedom and more, the word that just keeps coming is just more space. Like this part of us, what I'm feeling is like, it's like this restriction. And then all of a sudden it's like, you know what? Even it may be scary to allow that part of myself to be expressed more, but I'm already hurting, right? So like we start to realize that the energy around the 21st of the stuff that's coming up, I don't think this is going to be new stuff. I don't think that this thing that comes up for a lot of us, I think most of us are not going to be surprised. I think it's going to be more like, this again, or, you know, I thought that it was something that I didn't have to deal with right now. I think it's going to be more like that. I think very few of us are going to be surprised. And then we start taking some of our sovereignty back. Black Moon Lilith is about sovereignty, and it's about really step into your fully authentic self. And that takes growing pains, and it takes courage. And this is the catalyst that's going to allow us to do that. And then by the 27th, the moon and Saturn conjunct in Pisces. And so we have that same energy of the trine in Neptune, or where the moon trined Neptune on the 24th. And Neptune rules Pisces. So we have the same kind of energy. This is intuition, imagination. And this is a very interesting place for the moon and Saturn to be in, because Saturn is a very different energy than Pisces and the moon. The moon is about subconscious, and it's about your feelings, it's about your emotions. And Pisces is very amiable to that, because it's also about intuition and imagination. It's a very spiritual sign. And Saturn is about limitation, it's about time, it's about organization. And even though these energies are so different, Saturn in this particular case is coming in and is almost like giving an organized structure to all of the possibilities. It's like on the 24th, we have all of these different options that we're weighing, but our wheels are still kind of spinning, and we're, perhaps like facing some fears. And then Saturn comes in on the 27th and everything kind of locks into place. And then we start realizing, what is it that we really, truly want? And Saturn in Pisces also gives us the ability to create more of a roadmap to where we want to go, versus it feeling so overwhelming if we try to visualize this future, visualize this vision, and go all in on it, but not break it into digestible phases or steps. This would be a great time to be able to break down whatever your goals are, whatever your ambitions are for the rest of the year. This would be a wonderful time to sit down and get it out of your head and get it onto paper. What is it that you want to do? Is there healing that you need to have done? Are there certain conversations that you need to have? And Saturn also is about the energy of not just limitation, but discernment. So it's about filtering out what is necessary and needed, and it's about no fluff. So there may be some clarity around our relationships. Which ones need to have more space? Do we need to create space between us and some other people in our lives, even if we love them very much? We may not love their behavior. Their behavior may be very hurtful to us, at least at this time, or toxic. And that might be something where we might have to, make sure that we're not spending so much time communicating with that person. Or we may have to let go of the relationship completely in some cases. So those are some clarity that might come by the 27th. So by the 27th, there's a pressure release. It's the clarity, the resolution. Here's the thing. If we're going to be uncomfortable in some way, most of us out there's some part of our life that we're a little uncomfortable with. That discomfort is actually not necessarily a bad thing in all cases. Most people think that we would really be so much happier if everything was perfect and we were perfectly comfortable, but we're creative beings, and the creative process it requires a bit of tension. And there is nothing more honorable and more valuable to put your creative energy behind than to create the kind of life that you want and deserve. So take the step. If discomfort is inevitable in life, then we might as well be uncomfortable taking the risks that are needed to get to where we truly want to go, versus making compromises that we know are never going to be truly fulfilling. And this moon is going to bring those things right up into our face, and we're going to have some decisions to make. And it's not a bad thing. It may not necessarily be comfortable, but we're really leveraging and we're continuing on this path of freedom that was started many moons ago. And so it really is truly, in the long run, a freeing thing where I think we're all going to have a lot more sovereignty out of this if we're willing to face the fear, to face the tough emotions, and to ask ourselves the Capricorn motto, the Capricorn question, which is, what are you going to do about it? Capricorn's all about action. So Yeah, now is the time to journal and to reflect and to analyze, but then it's also a time to make a plan. So let's take a look and see what the tarot cards might be able to help us have a little bit more clarity around as to what that plan might be. So I invite all of you who are watching to set the intention that the part of this generalized reading that really pertains to you is going to be like just really clear. Like you're going to know like that message is for me. All right, so let's ask our divine highest self, what is it that we need to know or do to make the most of the summer solstice full moon in Capricorn on June 21st, 2024? Yeah, okay. So a lot of this energy, it very much, the energy of the cards it very much reflects the energy of the stars. Full card is the very first card that comes up, and the full card is about new beginnings. It's about the unknown. And so something about the 21st, as far as like what is coming up, is, you know, we're being asked to step into new beginnings, and new beginnings always have a element of the unknown. And in order to step into the unknown, see if this, so the way that they came out is he is stepping away from the Six of Cups. And the Six of Cups, when it's reversed, it often comes up around past things that have to do with our younger days, our days when we were children or young adults, that we picked up beliefs about ourselves, habits that we might have, and perspectives that aren't very helpful. He's leaving that behind. And he's leaving that behind in order for the Seven of Cups reverse. And when it's reversed, the Seven of Cups is about taking potential and actually bringing it into the world as something tangible. This is not a card that is negative in the reversal, and actually it's quite the opposite. So we're making some decisions. We are discerning what is right for us, and we're able to separate that from what it is that we are told is right for us. That's a big difference. And in doing so, we are mastering our own emotions. The Queen of Cups is about creativity. It's about nurturing. This is very much in alignment with that Venus energy that we were talking about, and the Cancer energy that we were talking about, like the nurturing, sacred, feminine energy. And so with the cup, which is open, she is mastering her own emotions, but not from a place where she's building walls. Like the cup isn't closed. It's not closed off. Her heart and her emotions are still available to be shared. And I like to say she's also keeping an open mind. And in doing so, what's going to give that space, that openness, so that your cup can runneth over, is to let something go. Let someone or something go. This could be a belief, could be a habit. It could just be a way of being that we're willing now to allow that to be laid to rest. And so this is a time of renewal. It's a time of rebirth. And I don't think it's just a coincidence that it happens on the summer solstice. We're being asked to up-level the way in which we nurture ourselves. And I think that that's also going to translate into boundaries. I've talked about that in so many of these videos of, you know, the need to say no when we mean no, and yes when we mean yes. So this is going to be a good one. I know that for a few days, some of us might be kind of itchy. Be very conscientious about about any frustrations that come up and what kind of words that you use. Try to be as calm and peaceful as possible. So thank you all so much for joining me. And if you are needing a personalized reading around that, do make sure that you check out the link in the description at BeTheWholeYou.com, where you can schedule a one-on-one session with me. And until next time, in a couple weeks, we're going to take a look at the new moon that's coming up, and we're going to see what kind of energy this is going to be connected to in a couple weeks from now. All right, everyone, take care. Stay blessed.